Hello horror hounds. Phantasm from the dying embers of the 70s had to wait almost 10 years for a sequel. A change of regime in Universal had brought in someone who loved horror movies, and they greenlit Phantasm II, brought out in 1988. And just like every other 80s sequel, you know what that means. More balls. Different decade, completely different aesthetic. This is Phantasm by way of The Evil Dead and Nightmare on Elm Street 3, to my mind. There are nods to The Evil Dead throughout the movie. A bag of ashes containing purportedly Sam Raimi's ashes, and a shot homaging, let's say, mirroring directly a shot from The Evil Dead. Not just a change of decade, not just a change of tone and feel, though. This is a Universal movie with a fairly decent sized budget. So gone is the indie let's put on the show right here in the barn aesthetic that Coscarelli was used to, and in comes studio notes, in comes concessions that have to be made. No dream sequences in a Phantasm movie, if you can believe that. Mike has to have a love interest. Oh, and by the way, you can't have the original cast back. No one knows who they are. To that, at least, Coscarelli was able to fight. He was able to choose between Reggie Bannister returning as Reggie or Michael Baldwin returning as Mike. He made, in my opinion, no disrespect, Michael Baldwin. We'll be talking about your return in part 3, so I'll big you up then. He made the right decision, in my mind, for continuing this. Reggie Bannister becomes, and here's another vibey parallel with the Phantasm series as it moves on with the Evil Dead franchise. Reggie becomes a kind of Ash figure, a kind of Bruce Campbell figure in this, just a regular working schlub with no real pretensions at greatness or even a massive work ethic, to be perfectly honest, who finds himself at the epicenter of the end of the world and at the vanguard of trying to stop the big evil from engulfing the earth. So kind of, no big deal. Yeah. I'm the chosen one. If I don't do the job, no one else is going to do it. This plays, because of the restrictions placed on it, much more like a straightforward road movie mixed up with horror infusions than the weird, surreal, nightmare logic, dreamy, European horror infused work of odd genius that is the first movie. I mean, this is a 1980s buddy road movie all the way. And just like most 80s action movie stars, this movie is jacked up as well. There are chainsaw fights, quadruple barrel shotguns, leveled up spheres, golden spheres now that shoot freaking laser beams. Everything is dialed way up. And I know that Phantasm II, because of that, has a ton of fans. I don't dislike Phantasm II. It's just after the glorious weirdness of the first one, this seems a little staid. It seems a little straight down the middle. It seems a little obvious. But it is a movie of 80s excess, and it does revel in it, and you are kind of swept along with it. I'll be entirely honest. It's hard to dislike Phantasm II. It's completely bonkers. It's just a completely different kind of bonkers to Phantasm. About 10 minutes into the movie, I'd say, after Mike has spent the intervening years in some sort of sanatorium and is now released because he's able to say with a straight face that the events of the first movie that he witnessed as a child were in his head. It's probably a good time to take a little reality check on the franchise. So all of the original film was a dream, except for the very ending where we find out that it was Jodie that died in a car crash and not Mike's parents that had died. But then at the end of that movie, we learn that Reggie blows up the house after facing an army of dwarves. but 8 years later tells a newly released Mike that even that was one of Mike's delusions. Up until the point driving Mike home, Reggie's house is now blown up, as predicted by Mike, and Reggie now suddenly accepts everything that Mike says and decides to go on the road to hunt down and kill the tall man. This kind of inconsistency is the stuff that drives my girlfriend absolutely fucking crazy. She likes to know what's real and what's not real. I would suggest to any of you thinking about watching the Phantasm franchise, one, why are you watching a review of Phantasm II? And but welcome. But two, if you're looking for narrative cohesion and you're really wanting to pin down what's real and what's dream and what's unreal, the Phantasm movies aren't going to be for you. If you want some batshit crazy fucking gore effects and insane silver flying spheres that drill into your skull and exsanguinate you in a matter of seconds, you're probably not going to get that anywhere else. There is a ton of stuff to like in this. I do like how this now expands outside the perimeters of the small town. Was it Morningside? The original was set. I love the idea of the tall man moving across country, leapfrogging from small town to small town, using them up and then moving on. Coscarelli said that Salem's Lot was a clear and present influence to the idea that that's what the tall man does. I love the shot of the emptied cemeteries and the tall man leaving traps for Reggie and Mike who are tracking him across the country. I love the scene of, it's a little religion baiting, but then again, the confrontation between the tall man and the priest, and again the priest of wavering faith who likes a nip of the old drink. I mean, that's Callahan out of Salem's Lot, isn't it? That's straight out of Stephen King. But Angus Scrimm is on absolutely fine form as the tall man here. You think when you die you go to heaven? You come to us. Superb. I don't think Phantasm II is as strong as the original movie. It's not as creepy as its predecessor. It doesn't have the flair and the unique vibe that the original did. What it does, though, is injects a healthy dose of black comedy into the proceedings. It starts the slow process, well, not that slow, the process of promoting Reggie to that of unlikely hero. It's here also in this film that we introduce Reggie as a bit of a horn dog, to be perfectly honest, but always a little unlucky in his choice of ladies or his timing of encounters, shall we say. Just as the original Phantasm is sort of an artifact of the 70s and an excellent example of 70s horror, especially 70s Euro infused horror, Phantasm II is like a fly trapped in amber. It is an artifact of 80s cinema. All of the car chasing, the flamethrowers, the chainsaw fights, the bigger, badder, more Swiss Army knife spheres, and it just sounds like a hell of a lot of fun, doesn't it? And it is. After this run-in with a big studio willing to fund it and concessions that have to be made, the Phantasm finds itself in direct-to-video waters for the next two movies, although Universal agreed to distribute. Does that mean that the chains will be loosened somewhat on Coscarelli and with a lower budget but more room to maneuver, what's he going to bring us? Let's find out. It'll be the next one. It'll be the next video. I'm not telling you here what I think. And who cares what I think? Quite rightly, mine's not the only opinion out there, and to reflect that at the end of these videos, I like to take alternate viewpoints from Internet Movie Database reviews. Fenster7 calls Phantasm II the best in the series. I haven't seen the first Phantasm, but I did see 2, 3 and 4. This was definitely the best. It has action, horror and a little romance. If you want a movie that can scare you and make you wonder, watch this one. I just suggest Fenster 7 before you start declaring things the best in the series. Watch the entire series. And perennial IMDb reviewer favourite on this channel, Jacob John Taylor 1, shares these delights. 6.5 is overrating this movie. It is awful. Phantasm 3 is a better movie, and that was pretty bad. Phantasm 4 is a better movie, and that is also pretty bad. The storyline in this movie is awful. It is not scary at all. The ending in this movie is also just awful. Do not this movie. I like most science fiction cult classics, and I hated this movie. Plan 9 from Outer Space is a lot better. The Halloween movies are better. This waste of time. It is also a waste of money. This just very stinky. It is poo-poo. Do not see this movie. This whole series is crap. Do not bother with it. Poo-poo, poo-poo, poo, poo-poo, poo. Do not see it.